Tether, who has brought us USDT stablecoin, has invested $200 million in BlackRock Neurotech. I don't know whether that is the BlackRock, but like, why wouldn't it be? So my guess is that it is, which obviously is a brain-computer interface company. And what they're saying is they think nurturing emerging technologies that have transformative capabilities is important, and it is important. And there's a lot of great stuff about what brain-computer interface can do for people with disabilities. And there's also another thing that nobody talks about, but is happening, which is tokenization. So crypto is tokenization. Watch my cryptocurrency for beginners video. Like 10 of you have watched it, so I know you haven't watched it yet. Tokens will be the signals that advance our great super intelligences. So these brain-computer interfaces, you'll be able to boil them down to like math and signals, either like generating or spending a token. Very interesting. Have you noticed that Square, Jack Dorsey's payment, Jack Dorsey invented Twitter, but then he invented Square, which is like electronics payment format. Anyway, it's called Block now, so it has evolved into the third dimension. Because blockchain and cryptocurrency are not the renegade freedom thing, they're the status quo establishment thing. I mean, all the system wants you to do is take a position so it can get the signals. So you hate it? Cool. Do you love it? Cool. And then on that note, there was a TechCrunch article about generative AI and the problem of compensating creators. So this discussion will lead to, well, if you want to create something and you don't want it stolen by the AI, then you will be forced to mint an NFT so that we know it's yours. And then we can use the signals intelligence to see what percentage the AI used of your thing to generate a thing. And something this utilizes right now is cooperative game theory. So it's game theory, but with teaming, because it's the ultimate. Pluto and Aquarius is all about teaming, like creating divisiveness so you can split people up into teams and then take advantage of like the group flow consciousness. And sometimes that can like translate to mob mentality or mob rule. And sometimes other things that like you don't even know that it's being, your consciousness is being harnessed as a part of a team of people who believe in the same thing. Like the Sephora Kids. That's my opinion. I don't know for sure that Sephora Kids was a manufactured experiment about group flow and teaming using the metaverse, which is social media. So in game theory, a cooperative game is a game with groups of players who form binding coalitions. So I don't quite understand how this works with artists, but like this is like my guess, so I have this wrong. If I have this wrong, tell me. I'm making this up from skimming the Wikipedia. Okay, so voluntariness, equality, and mutual benefit. In cooperative games, players voluntarily come together to form coalitions to make agreements. The players must be equal partners in the coalition, and any agreements must be mutually beneficial. Cooperation is only sustainable if all parties are receiving a fair share of benefits. I still don't understand quite what this means, but what it seems to me from this article is like, cooperative game theory is, quote, computationally expensive. And so to calculate like who gets what from an AI thing, that's too complicated. So I think maybe the solution that comes in has to do with tokenization. Like you'll be forced to mint an NFT and then it's easy to get the signals. I made that up. WeWork rejects Adam Neumann's acquisition bid and unveils restructuring. What I hear from this article is words. Adam Neumann, WeWork. It's WeWork and Adam Neumann's, which is Adam Neumann's old project, and Flow, his new project, are both the metaverse as it integrates with reality. So as I keep saying, the metaverse is our new government and our new economy, and it's social media. That's what it is. Adam Neumann early on described WeWork as a physical social network, and it's very much in line with like these like key fob app models you see in places where you can live now. Everything is tracked, like your access to things is tracked by an app, and you can use your phone to unlock things, even though you also have like a key fob. But everything is done on the app, so it's tracked as if it were a digital social network, but it's real life. So the thing, when I read this headline, it's just like blah blah blah. The sound is the meaning. Adam Neumann, WeWork. These things are still important. I think they paint Adam Neumann as like this like fallen CEO, but he's important to everything. I think SoftBank may have invested in him, which is a big deal. I might be making that up. But definitely Andreessen Horowitz, who I talked about a couple weeks ago. So what is techno-optimism? I saw this article on Dig. I don't like read Dig, but I started just reading an aggregate that shows me things from Dig. So I went to the original paper, and it's written by Mark Andreessen of Andreessen Horowitz. And this is who I was talking about last week, or no, the week before last. They made the largest recent investment, like venture capital investment, and they put it into different categories. And one of the big categories is gaming, which the Morning Brew podcast people were like, I don't know about gaming, but that just seems, to me, it's either, sorry, there's one more option. So 2 weeks ago when I was talking about this, I was like, it's either disingenuous. They're saying it even though they don't believe it's true, because how could they? They're so dialed in. Or it's ignorance. That it would just be ignorance. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean that in the definition of the word. So you're ignorant of all the importance of gaming to the future. The third option is that they were told to say it. If you can think of any other options, let me know. So why is that the importance of gaming being obfuscated in such a public tech business channel like Morning Brew? I don't know. Anyway, this paper is called The Techno-Optimist Manifesto. I almost want to make a whole video about it. It was posted October 16th, 2023, and it has there are many interesting things. So one of the things that I could just easily nitpick is, here's a piece of it. We believe that there is I'm quoting, we believe that there is no material problem, whether created by nature or by technology, that cannot be solved with more technology. Intellectual control over nature seems very stunted to me. So again, either disingenuous or ignorant. I'm quoting again. We had a problem of darkness, so we invented electric lighting. Maybe I could do a whole video on darkness being framed as a problem versus a necessary part of the reality we live in, especially given how our bodies have evolved. I go on about this all the time, about how electric lighting interferes with your circadian rhythms. When your circadian rhythms are not interfered with, your brain releases melatonin. Melatonin not only makes you drowsy, it is a powerful antioxidant. So there are deep health implications in just the proliferation of blue lighting at night, which seems to be increasing, not decreasing. Okay, so we had a problem of darkness, so we invented electric lighting. Hidden side effects with that one. We had a problem of cold, so we invented indoor heating. We had a problem of heat, so we invented air conditioning. Both these things help to result in a flat line along with the lighting. I get this terminology from Daniel Vitalis, who used to have this Rewilding podcast. I think I'm entering territory of criticizing powerful people, and so then maybe one of you 50 people who are watching this might come at me with trying to tarnish the credentials of the people I'm referring to, whose ideas that I like. And you can go ahead and do that, but now that I mentioned it, let it be known that everyone knows that's what you're doing. Hoff considers the elements and elemental temperature variation a missing form of nutrition. So I guess we can control it, and that's luxurious. But also, if you're getting cold a lot, then you form brown adipose tissue that makes you better at receiving the cold. And I guess my detractors will use this to drag me out into the cold. But I live in this world of your making, so please don't do that. We had a problem of isolation, so we invented the internet. Even aside from studies, which are whatever, can be manufactured. We all know that the internet can actually create more isolation. Now we no longer have the meat space communities that really give us life. It's just these manufactured communities that can be tracked for signals intelligence and can be used to create divisiveness that creates ideological teams that can help teach the superintelligence. The next one I'm not going to read because it's too polarizing, and I'll get a thing at the bottom of my video. It talks about decentralization, saying that decentralization, quote, harnesses the complexity for the benefit of everyone. Centralization will starve you to death. But all the crypto blockchain stuff that's being served as decentralization isn't really. It's mostly centralized because the user experience is inversely correlated with the decentralization. So the more you want to have a good user experience, which mostly I guess just means get the most data, make it the most addictive so we can get the most data. But even if it were actual real good healthy user experience, if that exists, that diminishes the decentralization part. So I found that a weird thing to say. They say, we believe any deceleration of AI will cost lives. deaths that were preventable by the AI that was prevented from existing is a form of murder. And just giving you the juicy talking points. This was interesting. I mean, there's a lot to go into here. I'm just giving you like the yellow journalism, the things that I saw immediately that were like, this is weird. Okay, so there's a lot more swirling around this, but the main idea in one of the like clusters of paragraphs is that humans are the ultimate resource. And that goes by like human innovation. But what about like creating piezoelectricity to pay your rent? Because you have to, not because you want to. It also talks about how the global population can easily expand to 50 billion people, and that's because we're settling on other planets. When I think a lot of technologists understand like the ape in a tin can thing, and that outer space is spiritual and about consciousness. These people have to know this. Here's an interesting quote. To paraphrase a manifesto of a different time and place, quote, beauty exists only in struggle. There is no masterpiece that has not an aggressive character. Technology must be a violent assault on the forces of the unknown to force them to bow before man. And you might say, I don't know what that's from, I didn't look it up. You might like accuse me of taking this out of context, but I think the context that this document creates is actually confusing. It's like hogwash. That's my opinion. So that's why I'm reading you just the little bits. So go read the whole article, the Techno Optimist Manifesto. It's at a16z.com. So some of this like is like strong-arming nature. Feels like a little oog caveman to me, and not in a good way where like cavemen were getting melatonin. In one part it talks about natural resources and how, quote, natural resource utilization has sharp limits. Yeah, and the way that we're utilizing them in the Mike Judge film Idiocracy. The word utilize, there's a running joke that nobody talks about in the movie, that the word utilize means to This is an interesting quote that I am having difficulty unpacking. A common critique of technology is that it removes choice from our lives as machines make decisions for us. This is undoubtedly true, yet more than offset by the freedom to create our lives that flows from the material abundance created by our use of machines. So I just want to know what they're talking about, like what choices will be taken away from me and what am I trading them for? They go on to talk about their enemy, which is like, they say it's the UN SDGs, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So like framing the UN as the enemy is important to the narrative, the like signals intelligence narrative. And Andreessen Horowitz is positioning itself against that. But I don't really see on the whole, like when I read the entire article, which I did, how it's all that different. And the end of the article goes on to kind of, this is how I parse it. It's not necessarily like what they're saying, but like that anyone who would stifle, quote, innovation, captured by zombie ideas. And we will explain that your, quote, they will explain that your fears are unwarranted and the future is bright. And that's interesting because like Pluto in Aquarius is, a part of it is like being afraid of this stuff. It's not only like corruption around the themes of a neighborhood that is like a sign of the zodiac, but it's also fear of that corruption. So I think the most effective propaganda gets into this gray area. Anyway, a part of what I feel like they're insinuating is that if you are not all for this, then they must help you find your way out of your self-imposed labyrinth of pain. So if you're afraid of technology, don't be. You're in a self-imposed labyrinth of pain. On the one hand, that's not wrong, because everybody has lived through people have lived through difficult times and lived beautiful lives. But I think knowing what's coming, like what's being said, what's coming is not like necessarily what's coming. So I found this interesting. We believe, so this is all very like free market. We believe markets increase societal well-being by generating work in which people can productively engage. We believe a universal basic income would turn people into zoo animals to be farmed by the state. Man was not meant to be farmed. Man was meant to be useful, to be productive, to be proud. So this seems to be making a case against universal basic income, but remember from a couple of weeks ago, Andreessen Horowitz invested a lot of money, the single biggest at the time, their biggest like lump sum venture capital investment, to Adam Newman of WeWork's residential project, Flow, which is like a metaverse you can live in. And a part of that is universal basic income, except you don't just get it for nothing. You'll be like, and there are no jobs, so you'll be volunteering in order to get your universal basic income. Of course, like there are versions of that that could be wonderful, but like forced volunteering isn't really volunteering, is it? And what are the different contexts and different like levels of spaciousness of choice that you'll have? Like if you live in the luxury community experience, will you get more or better volunteering choices? I have so many questions, and it's weird that they don't mention that in this. They just say they're against universal basic income, but a part of the Flow thing is universal basic income as I understand it. Maybe I'm making that up. Anyway, let's take a look at the chart for the day that this paper was released, October 16th, 2023. This chart is an untimed chart. It just has the ascendant on the sun. So this paper is more important than you think. And we'll probably see more of that like after we can look back, like mid to late next year. You can look back at like, you can reread that paper. Go now and copy it because they've gotten rid of many papers that were interesting back in like 2020. Not Andreessen Horowitz specifically, but like Forbes. LinkedIn now has Wordle-style games. And the headline that I read says there are games you can play every day. So it means nothing. It's just a game. Signals intelligence has nothing to do with gamification, and your ability to commit to playing a game every day won't be logged. It'll have nothing to do with your children's ability to get a job. Walmart and Roblox are making virtual e-commerce a thing, so now you can buy like paper towels within Roblox, because that's a part of, it's like, isn't that exciting? But that's a part of like how we start to blend the metaverse with our actual lives, because the metaverse is our new economy. And then Dave & Buster's is going to allow people to bet on arcade games. So like an already gamified place is now doing financial betting, and places that weren't necessarily like explicitly gamified are becoming so. But nobody's talking about social impact finance, which is how somebody told me about like a viral video this week where they were saying something like how they don't know how they feel on Bitcoin or the US dollar, but they're bullish on obesity in the United States. Where can they bet on that? And it's funny because that's a thing. That's what social impact finance is. You can bet on societal outcomes. So that means you can also short people. Like you can bet that they're not going to do a good job. So yeah, lead me to the obesity securities markets. And Google's making audio emoji. So that's just what I love, is like a world of beeps and poop sounds that it can't escape. So there's a Wall Street Journal article that's like, digital twins are coming and they're ready to work. But guess what? You already have a digital twin. It's in your social media accounts. That's what they're doing with your data. They're creating a digital twin of you and a digital twin of the various things that influence you. And then those things can be like augmented. Anyway, they're saying digital twins are for fashion and clinical trials, something else, I forget what, but it's already a thing. Also, you already have a digital twin. It's your credit report. And also, you already have a social credit score. It's your follower count. I saw both of these headlines on Wired, and I thought it was kind of funny. One of them was, a new surveillance tool invades border towns. And then the other one was, how to track your sleep using your Fitbit. And so I talked about this a few weeks ago. Congress lets broadband funding run out, ending low-income discounts. But like, it's going to come back. Don't worry. They need everybody to be on the internet. It's not if you are, it's the reverse of what they're saying. Like, if you're low income, you're going to have to be on the internet all the time. If you are an affluent billionaire, then you get to be off the internet. Okay, Austria is asking for, and for fun, this is the chart for Kubernetes, which I talked about last week. and it's untimed again with the ascendant on the sun, so it's a solar chart. This is the chart for the software that currently rules the world, and its name is the same as cybernetics, which is a digital control system. When we look back at this in like 2 years, big changes in terms of what Kubernetes is and what it brings, or its fate somehow. There's like some fated change to this software that runs the world. There are now party bots, so you can hire this party robot for your wedding, and it keeps the energy up on the dance floor, which I must say doesn't not sound fun. Also, ooh, party bot, let me see your EULA. Don't go to my website this week. My CSS is broken, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to fix it. Do you ever fantasize about being my affluent patron, my wealthy benefactor? Well, you can be that by subscribing to the channel. Your other action item is to like the video. So Monday is a half day. The moon moves into Taurus in the afternoon, evening, so it's kind of go time, but then you get to stop and chill. And also at night, so all day Monday, especially like after 3 p.m. Pacific time, you'll experience the sun applying tightly to Saturn. It's the sun's opening sextile with Saturn. And Saturn in this part of Pisces has to do with like the distinction between material reality and other imaginal realms, which, like, when I say imaginal realms, that's the same as spiritual. They're the same to me, not just to me. So Saturn is like either like harshly delineating, like making it a binary, material versus spiritual, which is kind of what that Andreessen Horowitz paper does. They're saying we are techno-materialists. They make no mention of spirituality or relationality, even though that's where all of technology is headed. And Saturn can also blur that distinction, so make you like passing between realms. And the sun in Taurus wants to start as it means to go. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the Tuesday section. You know how last week was kind of like, start your engines, gentlemen. This is that in a different way. It's like Saturn makes things real. The sun wants to build, lead, and give an image, like make things visible, whether that's itself or something else. And especially in Taurus, like promote growth through stability, steadiness. Saturn can help with that. If you think of like Taurus as an earth sign, Pisces is a water sign. Water and earth make mud. And Pisces is a mutable sign, and Taurus is a fixed sign. So we also have like Saturn literally ending things in Pisces, and the sun carrying that like ending / new beginning forward in a stable way. So think about the Taurus area of your life. Tuesday, there are not a lot of aspects on Tuesday. Early in the morning, the moon conjoins Venus in Taurus, which is very nice indeed. So Tuesday could start off pretty nice, and Monday could also end, if you're up late Monday, pretty nice, because Venus's sect is nighttime. So Venus functions best at night. Venus is the benefic of sect. It's the benefic planet that can bring the most good. And at the end of Tuesday, so we get a proper nighttime dark moon in Taurus. And the last lunation in Taurus was the lunar eclipse on November 28th, 2023. So this is an interesting dark moon in that it kind of gives us, not only do we get kind of like a post-mortem on early 2022 through mid to late 2023 and what the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio were doing. So in the Scorpio and Taurus parts of your life, you can now begin, given all those changes, you can now begin anew after having grown and been challenged. So it's a very interesting dark moon, and it happens configured to, because the sun's involved, to this sun sextile Saturn. So there's a theme of like, what do you want to build? What stubbornness have you been able to like shuffle off in favor of doing something new in the Taurus part of your life? And this energy of beginning will increase until it reaches culmination with the full moon in Taurus, November 15th, 2024. So the Taurus part of your chart, let's begin. Another thing the dark moon is like roughly configured to is Jupiter and Uranus. So the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction was on April 20th, and whatever swirled, whatever crazy energy swirled around that, which like for me was quite pronounced, this dark moon speaks to that somehow. So it's not just the nodes time in Taurus and Scorpio early 2022 through mid to late 2023, it's also the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And that starts the day on Wednesday, the moon conjoining Uranus and conjoining Jupiter. But we can also consider the full moon in Taurus configured to Jupiter and Uranus and speaking to that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So a lot of Wednesday is an extension of like Monday and Tuesday. And then in the evening, the moon moves into Gemini, so that's like a busy evening. Maybe there's a party. Maybe you are socializing. Maybe your social media is popping off. Except it could be frustrating. The moon is trining Pluto, but it's also sextiling Mars. So it might be busy in a way that is satisfying. You get a satisfying amount of work done. You empty inbox Wednesday night. Thursday is one of my picks of the week for getting things done. If you need to put your nose to the grindstone, choose Thursday. That's the day starts out in the wee hours with the moon sextiling Mars. And then at night, the moon squares Saturn. If you're trying to have a good time on Thursday, you're going to have a bad time. But if you get that shit done, you're likely to be met with success or be rewarded in some other way. Friday morning is still busy, but as the day wears on, you start to get like the loading pinwheel as the moon in Gemini squares Neptune. And at night, the moon moves into Cancer, which is usually nice, except now Mars is in Aries, so when the moon is in Cancer, it's squaring Mars. And that makes me think of that like Andreessen Horowitz paper where it's like technology should be in violent control of nature or problems or something. I'm butchering that quote, so please go find the article, read it yourself. But it makes me think of this, the moon in Cancer, where it has dignity, squaring Mars in Aries, where Mars has dignity. There is like, the moon wants to get what it needs through like emotional attachment, or to give what is needed because it is emotionally attached. And Mars severs. That's the action of Mars, is to sever and separate. So when the moon in Cancer squares Mars in Aries, there's a conflict of interest. There's always a way with squares, especially this is a dignified square. Planets in question are in a good position where you can make good use of this. And I always say a square is like a square wave in modular synthesis. It sounds like, but you can make cool music out of that. Whereas like a sine wave is lovely and it's not complicated in its loveliness. You got to do something a little different to make a square wave nice music, or music that is enjoyable on some level. Saturday is my other top pick for getting things done. You might get a little bit of that Friday night, but mostly just the day starts with the moon squaring Mars, as I was discussing. And the day ends in the wee hours, Sunday technically, with the moon sextiling Venus in Taurus. So Saturday, get a lot of work done and then enjoy something good. Sunday is kind of a lot, and the moon, which is the activator of the zodiac, it activates everything. It just like lights up the mainframe of the memory palace, which is the zodiac. The moon makes aspects with Saturn in Pisces, Venus, the Sun, Uranus, and Jupiter in Taurus, and Mercury in Aries. So we get a little bit of all these stories, which like for the past few days have been mostly pretty distinct stories: Pisces, Taurus, Aries, and it kind of like stirs everything up and is like, do what you will with that. Remember, your Wi-Fi is a camera that can see through walls.